Hello and welcome to the Hypnotic Empath. I am your host, Robyn Holm. I wanted to share a little bit about my guest before we get into our conversation. So today I have the absolute honor and joy of interviewing Roseanne Austin. Roseanne Austin is a four-time best-selling author and the creator of the Fearlessly Fertile Method. Transitioning from her role as a California state prosecutor, Roseanne has become the world's leading fertility mindset coach, empowering women worldwide to overcome fertility challenges. After a personal 7-year struggle with fertility, she naturally conceived her son at nearly 44, defying traditional medical expectations. Roseanne's approach focuses on teaching women to align their thoughts, beliefs, and actions with fertility success. Through her books, podcasts, online courses, and retreats, she guides clients to embrace motherhood with confidence. Her expertise has been featured on major media outlets, including ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, The Daily Mail, Medium, and Authority magazine. She has also appeared on popular podcasts such as Wind Down with Jana Kramer and The Egg Whisperer Show, and the Wholesome Fertility Podcast. Residing in Texas with her husband, son, and 2 chihuahuas and 2 formerly feral cats, Roseanne enjoys traveling, engaging in deep conversations, indulging in high tea, listening to true crime podcasts, and watching Downton Abbey marathons. I am so excited to speak with Roseanne today because her work was instrumental in me conceiving my daughter. So when I conceived my son, it was a 12-year journey to get to that place. And once I did conceive him, I thought I had it figured out. It was like we had cracked the code, so to speak. And then when it was time to conceive my daughter, I had trouble again. And we went through a whole other round of IVF and we did all the exact same things and it didn't work. It failed. And I was absolutely devastated. And it put me into such a mental spiral, a downward spiral that I didn't feel like I could even climb out of. And through that process of healing, I came across Roseanne's work. I heard her on a podcast and I read her book and I felt like she was speaking directly to me. So I consumed everything that I could get my hands on. And I realized that it was my mindset that really needed to shift in order for me to conceive my daughter. I knew there was a baby there. I knew my daughter was coming. I just had no idea how we were going to get there. So I finally started working with Roseanne in her coaching program. So I got to spend every Saturday morning with her in a group of wonderful women and really work through her program to start changing my mindset. And looking at that, I was reworking the programs of my subconscious mind to get me to the place that I even could receive another pregnancy. So through working with her, we decided to do one more round of IVF, one more. And at this point, it had been like a 10-year journey of IVF. And because we have an immune situation going on my side, plus a sperm situation going on with my husband, we really did need IVF to conceive. Both of my babies are IVF babies, but only IVF was not enough. And I was using hypnotherapy to work on changing my subconscious. And then my work with Roseanne really helped me to rework what I believed to be possible. So through working with her, we did another round of IVF. And sure enough, I ended up pregnant with my daughter. So I got to be on her podcast 5 years ago talking about my daughter and that pregnancy. So I'll link to that in the show notes. And I am so thrilled, so honored, so in awe of the fact that I am having her on the podcast here today. You are in for a wild ride. I cannot wait for you to hear this podcast. Roseanne shares so much wisdom with us. You might want to take notes. And I'm going to link her podcast as well because it's so fantastic and it's so uplifting and it'll really give you a shot of encouragement. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Roseanne.
Look at how beautiful you are. I can't stand it.
Oh, pinch me, pinch me. I can't believe this.
Oh my goodness. Look at this. Wow. Oh, what a treat this is. I have to say, what a treat.
I am so thrilled to see you and to be here with you. And I was thinking about this so much this morning because the last time that I saw you in this way was when I was on your podcast 5 years ago, sharing about how I had finally conceived my daughter. And
Baby Ruby.
baby Ruby, and she
Well,
is,
she's not a baby anymore now, but like she's hell on wheels now.
yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Well, I'm excited to have this conversation.
Well, I got to spend 10 months straight with you when I did your program and your coaching, and that was so wonderful. I would love if you would share with our listeners about your own story and how you have ended up becoming the fertility fairy godmother. Would you do that?
Oh, Robin. Well, as they say, necessity is the mother of invention, right? So this whole thing started when I was a prosecutor in California. I was specializing in the prosecution of sex crimes, and I was in my dream profession. This is, back then I that was what I knew I was really good at. I loved being in the courtroom. I loved advocating for victims and survivors of sexual assault. And at that time, I also happened to fall in love, believe it or not. And, at the time, I didn't see myself as somebody who necessarily was a white picket fence kind of person. I saw myself in very masculine, kind of roles and being a prosecutor, trial attorney. I kind of thought that was the end of the road for me, that was what my life was meant to be. But I fell in love and there was something that happened. I'm like, oh my goodness, I want to have babies with this man. Like it was unusual because I wasn't one of those women, as I said, who like grew up always knowing that they wanted to have children. So that wasn't my story. But when that became my story, it really opened up some doors for me that I didn't think would ever open. I never considered myself old. I never thought of myself as late to the party. And I certainly was not that professionally. But when it came to my fertility, according to everything I was being told, I was late. And so when my husband and I decided that we wanted to start our family, I had heard through the grapevine that it could be harder for quote unquote older women, which for those of you listening, if you don't already know, anyone over 35 is considered over the hill from a fertility perspective. Yeah. And I just like, I never really saw myself from that perspective, but I was used to wearing a suit, not a white coat. So I had all these people wearing white coats telling me that, man, it's looking grim for you. And when we started trying and really getting into this, I was about 37. So I freaked out. I started to get really worried. So when we were trying naturally and nothing was happening, I mean, I gave it all of like 5 minutes, Robin. Like, that's the kind of woman I am. I do not play games. I am very type A, lovably control freaky, professional. There is not a single challenge you will put in front of me that I will not crush. So as soon as it felt like it was struggle, like I got myself into a doctor's office. And what's really interesting is that was the first time I had ever been told anything negative about my abilities. I had never, ever come face to face with the idea that this was something I couldn't do. So I was very quickly shown statistics, charts, all of this craziness. And I was heartbroken. It was really, as somebody that's a hard worker, like I don't expect anything for free. I really did expect that it might be a little bit of work, but I didn't expect that I would be moving mountains, essentially. And by all accounts, I didn't have enough follicles. I was going to need to have a donor egg. Like I remember sitting catatonic in the doctor's office when that was mentioned. And now, to be clear, it's not that I had anything against a donor egg. It just didn't feel aligned with my personal story. I know very clearly that that is miraculous. It's a beautiful gift that a woman can receive from another woman, but it just didn't feel lined up. So I immediately jumped into IVF. Like I literally, Robin, nobody slowed me down. Nobody stopped me. I immediately went into IVF. Nobody counseled me, hey, let's take a few steps here. Maybe we'll do some IUIs. Like, we dropped a nuclear bomb in the center of our lives because that's what we thought would work. And I went into that treatment with so much fear, so much doubt, so much negativity that it doesn't surprise me that it failed. But when it failed, I spiraled very quickly. But the good news is that what that did was have me put on my prosecutor hat and really start to think about, geez, okay, if medicine can't help me, right? Because at that point in my mind, I thought IVF was the epitome of how it was going to happen. And if IVF couldn't help me, nothing could. That was the thought in my head. And so I immediately had to start looking, okay, where are the gaps? What am I not doing? So I literally laid it out on paper and was creating kind of the same sort of chart that I would create for a prosecution, where I was really lining up, like, what are all the pieces of the puzzle? And I started to consider things like acupuncture, looking at my diet. And at the time, like, you know, dairy, gluten, sugar had not crossed my lips in what felt like ages. So I was doing all these physical things. I called up a celebrity acupuncturist. I was driving hundreds of miles a week, Robyn. In between my cases, I was running to a girlfriend's house that had a deep soaking tub so I could do detox baths. Like, I would do it in on my lunch hour. Like, I was doing everything. I was boiling black chickens because an acupuncturist told me that that would get me pregnant. I was steaming my vagina with this tea that was made by moonlight from like elves. It was anything that anyone would tell me. I saw a medical medium over the phone. This was in the dark ages when we didn't have Zoom. So I was having these like intuitive things, I was doing, which are all beautiful. I freaking love all of it. But I realized very quickly, because we changed clinics. I was being seen at a top 10 teaching hospital in California. I mean, it was the best of the best. Nothing was working. So I had to go back to the drawing board, and I had considered all of these physical things, all of this external stuff, but I had not even spent a moment considering the mess that was in my head, because I felt like Batman at the time. I was living a very much a double life. So I was trying these very serious, violent felony cases, serial rapes, like cold case. Like, this is like straight up Law and Order kind of shit that I was doing. And I was not taking care of myself mentally. I was not at all looking at the way that I was thinking or what I was believing, because what I was thinking was terrible. What I was believing was terrible. So it didn't matter that we had the best of the best doctors on my cases. It didn't matter because I was not in it. I had pretty much checked out. I had already decided that it was probably going to be a failure. And when I realized that I had that pattern, I was shocked. And I hadn't fully appreciated the damage that was done to my self-esteem at the time, because so much of who I was up to that point, my identity was tightly wrapped up with success. So it was a really dark place for me. So I said to myself, I got to look at this. So I started to do research. I started to investigate. I started to experiment with what it takes to change mindset, what it takes to change self image, and really started to work on that. And I started to go down this really awesome rabbit hole and started to look at the science behind it, look at what great thinkers said about it. I mean, there's stuff in many different scriptural traditions about the power of mindset. And I was like, how the hell could I have missed this? So when I started to implement what I was doing with our very last embryos, we did a transfer. Nothing else with the protocol changed. What was different was me. So I got pregnant in that last transfer. And I was so excited. I was so ready to go. I was like, oh my gosh, can't believe I got this result. And then I miscarried. And while that was undeniably heartbreaking, I was weirdly giddy, Robyn, because what I realized is that I could have an impact. Yes, the immediate result was not what I wanted, but not only could I feel different, I could create a different result. Even if it wasn't exactly what I wanted, it was a step in the right direction. So, yes, I spent at least a week in a dark room watching Downton Abbey, okay, like to deal with my pain and my heartbreak. But when I was done with that, I said, not only am I done with IVF, I am done being that woman. So it was really powerful. And so I started to really implement. And I said to myself, I've got to share this with other women because I think there's other women just like me who are super goal oriented, super success oriented, but they don't know about this. So then I started teaching women all over the world what I had learned, and my clients, their successes were insane and quick. And it was really interesting. So I was watching women who had come to me after years of struggle, getting and staying pregnant within 12 months. And I mean, and some women were a little bit longer than that, but it didn't matter. What mattered was something rather dramatic was happening for them. And many of them were getting pregnant naturally, even after IVF had failed. So I realized that I have to become more serious about sharing this. And so I had left my work as a prosecutor, I said, which was nuts. Okay, it was freaking nuts, Robyn. Nobody leaves a job like that, okay? You're making over six figures. You get a steady paycheck every 2 weeks. You have respect, generally speaking, in the community. Like it was, and I remember waking up in the middle of the night saying, I am being called to do this. And I remember telling my husband, he's like, great. But I was in like this existential crisis because I'm like, if I'm not a prosecutor, what am I? And it was really an invitation to step into the next evolution of what I was meant to do. And here we are 11 years later, thousands of women, babies all over the world. And it's just a testament to how profound following your calling and being able to turn your pain into purpose really is. So, very long-winded answer to your question, but I think that this frames it for where we are today.
It's perfect. And you sharing that story is what guided me to you because I heard so much of my story and your story. And I came across you at one point on Instagram, I believe it was. And this is before videos, so isn't that funny? It wasn't that long ago, but everything is different now.
Yeah.
And it guided me to your podcast. And I listened to every single episode on your podcast first. And I remember putting you in my ears and going for a walk. And there's the things that you say on that podcast that are still running through my mind to this day. Because at that point, now I was working on conceiving my second child, and the things that had worked for my first one were failing to work for the second one. And I had really terrible mindset about it. I felt so defeated, even though I knew there was a baby there. And your story and your process really spoke to me and called me. And I read your book, and I remember reading the book and going, it's like she's in my head because I also am a type A control freak professional, super driven, and you can't. This is the one thing that you cannot force or work hard enough to get because it's about another person. It's about their story too. It isn't just about how hard we can work. And then eventually I transitioned over to working with you in your coaching program. And not only did I end up conceiving my daughter, it changed the way that I think about myself, about my career, about my parenting. And I could not be more grateful for that time that I spent with you and you helping me to learn how to recognize when I was sabotaging myself, what to do about it. And working on the subconscious programming became such an important part of my story that now I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. And so I work exclusively with the subconscious mind now. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you help women change their subconscious mind and change their belief systems.
Right. So when your listeners are hearing this, like when we're talking about with the subconscious mind is the emotional mind. It's the part of us that we don't have to think. It's just the essence of who we are being, and that's based on programs. Right? Yeah, it's just programs. And our subconscious mind is responsible for so many systems in our body. I mean, you and I don't have to think about our hearts beating or our blood circulating. Our subconscious mind is controlling all of these things. And in addition to those survival things, it also includes the survival emotions, right? It's intended to keep us safe. The whole idea is that we were raised in very different environments at different times to have beliefs about the world. And so when you come into a situation where you don't have a program, which for those of us that are lovably control freaky professionals, our program says work harder. Our program says suffer. Our program says don't take care of yourself. Taking care of yourself is reckless, it's not necessary. And when you don't have a new program for approaching the fertility journey and how to process this information, we will go back to broken down old programs that only take us so far. Okay. It's interesting, Robyn, how shame, comparison, fear, and doubt can be positive in the sense because it'll make you overwork, right? You're constantly fighting for that sense of esteem, and it'll make you an excellent student. It will also make you terrorized of making a mistake. Mistakes become catastrophic. So the mindset that makes many women very successful, myself included, is not geared toward facing a challenge like your fertility journey because we have very little control over the timing. And I think you said something really astute, which is not surprising. But when you said, we're dealing with another person, another soul, another life, we can't will them into being. And so the kind of things that make us successful in our professions are not necessarily going to be the same tools that are precise for this challenge in our life. So, my work is really about giving women much more precise tools for approaching how to think, believe, and take action on this journey because it's not the same. And one of those key factors is really taking control of what you make things mean. And we take words like logic for granted as if logic is just one equation, right? And when you're thinking about your fertility, when you're thinking about your journey, this is deeply emotional and deeply personal. So, the kind of decisions that we might make in our professions, it's not going to have the same kind of algorithm, if you will. It's not going to have the same parameters. So, if you're trying to approach your fertility journey in just a push harder, make it happen, work harder, chances are you're going to get the exact opposite results that you really want. You want to learn a different kind of discipline. You want to have faith that is cultivated. And I don't mean religion. What I mean is a faith in self, faith in the universe, faith in your body's abilities. So it's really saying, yes, what made me successful is awesome, but it is an just incorrect, probably inefficient set of tools for something that is decidedly personal and decidedly emotional. So, my work is about helping women create a very specific fertility identity, one that their subconscious does not have a program for. So it's really cool in that sense, and the work is based on my own transformation. Because if you met me 15 years ago, Robyn, okay, there are going to be some things that are the same, but probably most things are not. It really was, and you've heard me say this before, and I think this is true for you as well. Our fertility journey is a gift. It's a gift and opportunity for transformation because the woman that I was as a prosecutor, I'm just going to say it straight up, would have been a terrible mother. Terrible. And it makes me emotional when I think about that. And it also explains a lot. My son, Asher, who is now 8, it's very difficult for me to believe that he's 8. And I had him when I was almost 44. He is so, like, he's such a big soul. And if I had him when I first was calling him, I would not have been equipped for mothering such a bright, vivacious, rambunctious little boy, right? He's just the sweetest kid, so inquisitive, and the parts of me would have attempted to crush that spirit. Like, I'm not afraid to admit that. I was not in a place where I could have fully appreciated the gift of his birth. So I really look at the time that we spent on this journey as preparation and as an invitation to my own transformation. Now, I don't want to leave your audience with this idea that you have to be perfect in order to be a mother. Anyone who has a mother knows that's not fucking true. But we want to be our best, right? That's the best that we can hope for, is that we can show up as our best. So it's learning the tools, learning the strategies, learning how to rewire your belief system and really welcome in this new version of you that you have not met as mother. Because even though you had your son before you had baby Ruby, there was a necessary transformation that had to happen within you to be the mother of two and to be prepared, because you were a boy mom. You had to prepare to be a girl mom, because if my memory serves, you always knew you were calling Ruby in. So that is a transformation. And I think when a woman understands that this is happening for her, she can begin to look at her journey in a different way.
Yeah,
So that's how the work is.
I say that all the time, that the tools that I gained in the conception journey were the tools that I needed to parent my kids. So that's why I was so surprised when it took me another 4 years to conceive Ruby, because I was like, well, I've already done the work. I don't understand. Well, I did the work to conceive my son. And then I had to bring in a different vibration, a different skill set. I had to get to a different place in order to receive my daughter. And thinking about it like receptivity or receiving makes me think about how you've been talking a lot lately about femininity. So, how does femininity play into this whole conversation?
Oh, Robyn, for women like us, femininity is essential. Now, let me
And
be
really,
clear.
really difficult.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Like, I mean, look, I was the kind of person that I had very complex cases that I was trying in court. There were days where I would call 13 to 30 witnesses at a time. Okay. These are very complex cases. So my mind was very efficiency oriented, no emotion. Like, in order to be a prosecutor, especially doing the kind of cases that I did, you had to suppress emotion. Like, I say this a little bit jokingly, I was kind of dead inside. And so, on a journey that is inherently personal and deeply emotional, I had no access to what I now know is the feminine. So when we're talking about the masculine and the feminine, everyone has masculine and feminine energy. It has nothing to do with gender roles. We're talking about energy. The masculine is the doer, the structure, the make it happen. The feminine is the intuitive, the spiritual, the creative, the inspired, it's all of that softness, it's all of that love, that nurturing that is our feminine. And I had no access to that. So, what I had to do was change my belief system about what it meant to be feminine. Because for me at the time, feminine meant weak. And I was rewarded in my work as a prosecutor to be strong. I mean, I couldn't I couldn't be doing a direct examination on a child witness crying with them. That was seen as unfreaking professional. So I would lock it up. And for that reason, I just didn't have access. So what I had to do was reignite my relationship with my feminine that was very present when I was a little girl, okay? Like, I was a girly girl. If you can't tell, my background's pink. So that's like my innate nature, but through the armor that I had developed over the years, it was something I couldn't trust. So, really tapping into the feminine is beginning to reestablish a relationship with your feminine side. Because, newsflash, ladies, having a baby is the most feminine thing you can do. So if you don't have access to that and you are struggling, you have got to ask yourself this question: what is the relationship I have with my feminine? And no shame. And this is not an indictment. What this is simply an invitation. So the feminine is critical. I mean, I wrote a book called The Feminine Fertility Cure. I mean, I break it all down there. But it is a cornerstone to getting and staying pregnant, is your relationship with your feminine.
Mhm. Yeah, I couldn't, and I remember that process as we were going through it. And even the shift for me at that time, like I let my hair grow long and I ended up wearing dresses and I'm back to the way that I was before in so many senses, but not that those things are feminine, but for me, that helped me get in touch with my feminine. And I remember after one of our calls, and I was going to have an Epsom salt bath, and we had been talking about this whole femininity concept. And here I am having an Epsom salt bath like it's a curative practice. So I've put in the Epsom salts and I've got the lights on and it's like I'm, having a bath on the face of the sun. And then I was like, well, look at the way I'm even having a bath. What if I were to light some candles and turn the lights down and just take my time? So those little shifts, which seem so insignificant, were actually really important to signal to my subconscious that it was okay to be feminine. Because everything that you said about the femininity and the masculine, I've always lived more in my masculine. So that was a really important part.
I'm glad you made that move. And look, for everyone, the feminine is going to look different. It may not be dresses. It may not be high heels. It can be you taking time. It can be you engaging in the inquisitive part of you that wants to learn more about certain things. It might be you connecting with your partner at a deeper level and asking for what it is that you really want, or even allowing yourself to be seen at all. So I think there's a lot of different ways that women can approach this.
I agree. And what would you say to the woman who is about to give up on the?
Don't,
Mhm.
don't, don't. And I would really encourage women. Look, so many of the reasons why we give up are based on old programming and worries about what other people are going to think. Are people going to think I'm stupid for wanting to have a baby at 50? Am I going to be the only one in the pickup line that has got a few wrinkles around her eyes? Or, am I too late? All of that is completely made up. It's completely made up. And one of the things I would encourage your listeners to do is take a look at your current assumptions about yourself, about your fertility journey, and really begin to understand what is controlling your belief system around this journey. 99.999 times out of 10, it's not you. It's the stories that you were raised with. It's what society thinks. It's what your mom said in eighth grade. It's all kinds of stuff that it no longer applies. For the women listening, you work hard every day serving other people in some way. And that is a very outward focus. The only person that is actually responsible for your happiness is you. And there is nothing wrong with being happy or taking up space or asking for a second scoop. Whether you're going to be a mom for the first time or you're working on baby number 2, number 3, number 4, whatever the case may be, wanting a full and complete family is valid. Okay? Whether it's baby number 1 or baby number 5. Like, people get worried. They're like, I've got 2 other kids and I'm working on the third one and it's taken forever. I'm like, there's no shame in your game, mama. An incomplete family is just as painful as not having a child at all. I don't care what anyone says. And anyone who is going to judge you or say somebody else's pain is less valid, don't listen. Don't listen. You create your own rules. And at the end of the day, whether you are in gratitude or frickin' regret when you're 70 is entirely up to you. Check your assumptions. And if you don't like the stories that are underneath the assumptions, change them.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And how can people work with you?
They can find me. I think the first step anyone should do, because as you well know, Robyn, The fearlessly fertile world and the way that I deal with fertility is very different. Go check out the Fearlessly Fertile podcast. Go binge 10 episodes because you're going to get a sense of really what this work is about. Go listen to Robyn's episode. That was so good. And that was back when my hair was pink, girl. You can go see, like, vintage Fearlessly Fertile. But I think going to the podcast, listening, and really getting a feel is a great first step. And then I'm also very active on Instagram. They can go check out Roseanne Austin Fertility at Instagram, or they can check me out on my website from maybe2baby.com. And I'm sure you're going to link something in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll link it all. I'll link our previous podcast together as well. I can't thank you enough for being here with us today, for your wisdom, for your guidance, for being such a bright light in the fertility world and in the world in general. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, and thank you, Robyn. It's truly a just an incredible honor for me to see not only how far you've come, but how you are using your own experience and your own life's path to now serve other people. I really think it's one of the most beautiful turns that you could have taken. I mean, I wouldn't expect any less, that's for sure. But I think it's so beautiful that you're able to now take this experience and speak with authority, having lived it. And so I'm so excited for your listeners. I'm so excited for the world that you're out there doing this incredible work. So it's one of the best thank yous I could ever get, is seeing a woman living her dream. So thank you for that. Rock on, go kick some ass. And I can't wait to see this when it comes out.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're
Take
welcome.
Thank you for joining me today on the Hypnotic Empath. If this episode resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd follow the show, leave a 5-star review, or share with somebody who needs this kind of support. You can find more resources, hypnotherapy audios, and ways to work with me at robynholm.com. And don't forget, your sensitivity is not a weakness, it's a gift. Stay rooted in your power, and I'll see you next time.